Guten Erev Shabbos, Riverdale Minyan, as we gear up and get ready for the Parshiot that discuss the Mishkan, the Shabbos of Zachor, of getting ready for Purim, the Shabbos before Purim. There's a lot to talk about, a lot to think about. I'd like to dedicate our learning today to a Refuah Shlema for Shira Bat Devoraleah, Shira Shatzkes, who still needs our tefillot. We're thinking about her and praying for her all the time. The Torah tells us that each person would brought to the Mishkan whatever they individually had to contribute. Ish asher yidvenu libo. Someone was good at weaving, they came and they brought their weaving and they came, presented themselves as a weaver. And someone had wood that was stored up, they brought the wood that they had stored up. Someone else had gold or silver or bronze or what have you, they brought that. Everyone could bring their own contribution. How do we get to a point, and as parents, how do we get our kids to a point where they're comfortable enough and confident enough and independent enough to be able to make those contributions? I think about that a lot, especially when you watch like TV commercials, and there's a whole genre of TV commercials where you see these golden moments of childhood where the little child is taking his first steps and everyone is watching, and the music is playing, or the family's having a picnic on the beach and the golden hair is caught just the right way in the sunlight, or a birthday party is going on and the child is blowing out the candles and everyone is oohing and eyeing, and we all that's well and good, but we all at some point we sometimes get impatient. We're like, okay, grow up already, get out already. So how do we get to that point? Rabbi Dr. Yonatan Grossman, in his beautiful explication of Megillat Esther, which you can find in Hebrew and in English, as well as on the Yeshivat Har Etzion website in chapters, Rabbi Grossman asks the question, who is the protagonist? Who's the main character of Megillat Esther? And we generally define protagonist as the person who moves the story forward. At the beginning of the story, Dr. Grossman says it's clear that's Mordechai. Mordechai, who's rolled out in the text of the Megillah, Ish, Yehudi, Haya b'Shushan habira u'shmor Mordechai ben Yair ben Kish ben Yair. Right? You get his whole pedigree. Mordechai is the main character. He's the one who refuses to bow down to Haman and sets that whole terrible thing in motion. He is the one who uncovers the plot to kill Achashverosh between Bigtan and Teresh, and he makes that happen. And Esther, on her part at that point, is fairly passive. She listens to what Mordechai says. He says, go to the palace and be part of the beauty pageant, and she listens. He says, do not tell anyone that you're Jewish, and she listens. She doesn't act on her own accord, and it's only when she becomes an independent entity in the palace of Achashverosh, explains Rabbi Dr. Grossman, that she then becomes an independent actor as well, and she becomes the protagonist. At a certain point, he says she becomes, an invisible psychological revolution takes place within her. She says to Mordechai, all right, here's what we're going to do. I'll go to the king. You fast for 3 days. And Mordechai does exactly what she says. And she says, you tell everybody to do that. And Mordechai, the Megillah says, Vayas Mordechai kasher tziva Esther. He listened to all of her directives. The shoe was on the other foot, so to speak. Now, Esther was in the driver's seat, and Mordechai was listening to her. And it's Esther who then invites Haman and Achashverosh to party number 1, and it's Esther who invites Achashverosh and Haman to party number 2, and it's Esther who pleads on behalf of her people and who saves them. And at the end of the Megillah, it's Esther and Mordechai working together, acting really as equals to bring the story to its conclusion. Says Rabbi Grossman, that's the development of Esther. She can only become that independent person once she leaves the nest, as it were, of Mordechai. She goes from being like his niece, like a little child, to being his equal. And the Gemara Megillah says that he even treated her, and one Midrash says that they actually got married. Mordechai and Esther married each other. They became equals. We want our own kids, we want to develop our own children in ways that they'll become independent, that they'll leave, and sometimes that means letting go a little bit, which is a difficult thing to do. It means letting them stumble. It means letting them sometimes make mistakes and learning from those mistakes. That's a difficult thing to do as parents, or as educators, or as grandparents, but it's vital for us to be able to do that, because that's the only way that our kids and our grandchildren and those we are mentoring will get to the point of Asher Yidvenu Libo, that they'll be able to make those contributions. Esther is only able to make those contributions when she's out from under Mordechai's wing, and she's able to do all that she does and make the holiday of Purim happen for all of us. May this be a chance for us to learn, to foster independence, to make our own independence real, and to find those contributions that each of us can make, and make those contributions in a meaningful way. Shabbat Shalom.